Corona, viral infection turned out as a catastrophic pandemic. Its recent outbreak has emerged out as a consequence for the people across the globe, resultantly damaging almost all of the countries with a variable intensity. A disease that has affected almost all of the world by its aftermaths, and it is often stated as biowarfare. This pandemic actually broke out in a town of China named Wuhan, from where it spread out, and slowly it turned out to be a global threat. In addition to this, Corona has impacted each and every sector of life, whether it's politics, economy, trade, healthcare, infrastructure and many more others. But after all this, the question arises that are the nations ready to deal with this menace, as well as what should the strategy be adopted in order to cope up with this menace? Furthermore, the point to wonder is that the host nation for this disease is the one which got rid of it very rapidly. Let's talk about what measures has China took to eradicate this wave of harassment and threats caused by this, and also about those nations which succeeded against it and those which are yet undergoing its repercussions. Before moving forward, please subscribe this channel for more enlightening videos. Firstly, China stepped forward for isolation of all its subjects, as well as the closure of the public places including schools, malls, universities and all other places where there is a possible chance of gathering of people. The Chinese government officials, along with the doctors and physicians, directed all of the subjects to stay in their home for at least 2 weeks in order to avoid the physical contact of individuals, which is the basic cause of its spreading. In other words, China ordered a full-fledged lockdown throughout the country. In addition to this, China also banned all the foreign as well as local travels and terminated all of its flight operations with an immediate implementation. Their doctors worked untiringly just to make their nation pandemic-free and to set an example for the rest of the world that anything in the world is possible if executed with keen consideration. By doing so, China has actually created a benchmark in recovering itself from any devastating disease so rapidly, and has succeeded in its war against coronavirus. This situation became worse when it entered some other global powers like USA, UK, and created its worst ever impressions by harming their medical infrastructure, shortage of hospitals, mortuaries, and graves in the graveyards. Also, it started affecting the people of all age groups, whether senior ones, teenagers or infants, with a variable intensity. The principal medium of its transmission is air and the physical and direct contact of the infected one with a non-infected one. Other than that, extensive isolation is the only way out for it, as no proper vaccine is yet formulated for it. But these nations have an appropriate mechanism for dealing with all of this mess and could cope up with it with the help of some frequent efforts. Now, the situation is worst here if we talk about the third world nations, or the nations with a shaken economic structure, because steps like China would cost them more than Corona to deal with. If nations like Pakistan are discussed, then there comes a point where we analyze that the governments, whether federal or provincial, are taking proactive measures to their full extent in order to eliminate this menace. But on the other side, we as a weak economy can afford a complete lockdown, as this will adversely impact our daily wager category of people, which are in a greater number. And have we taken those measures like others did in order to cope up with this? So calling up for a full-fledged lockdown would possibly result in creating even bad conditions than that of the present day, because if there would be a full ban on all possible means of income for the families who are living below poverty line, then they would fear more from famine and hunger rather than Corona. Examples from the world can be taken of some famous personalities from every profession, who have committed to donate huge amounts in the welfare funds created for it, like are donating $1 million. Famous football star Cristiano Ryan Reynolds and Lake Lively Ronaldo is donating $1.1 million, Messi is also donating $1.1 million, and many others. So, it is now the responsibility of the officials of the state to look into the matter seriously and to create an environment which promises a full support in terms of ration to them and providing them some financial assistance through which they could reside in their houses calmly. In a nutshell, comparing the nations which have succeeded in defeating Corona with them which are yet undergoing through its repercussions gives us the result that by implementing immensely technical policies throughout the country and keeping in mind the aftermaths of this situation, collaborating with the citizens by making them aware about the severity of this pandemic, instructing the masses to stay in their homes for at least a time frame of 2 weeks just in order to avoid any direct physical contact with each other. By implementing this, we would be able to achieve our goal like China did, and we would also set an example for the world.